Before Dave's Killer Bread, my main claims to fame were creative drug dealing and, figuring out ways to do burglaries and armed robberies. I wasn't very good at any of them, but I did a lot of them.
This was the face of crime.
Back then, burglary, armed robbery, drug dealing, police beating up.
Rumor is that you did a little time.
Yes, like 15 years.
I was depressed, and I looked at life in a dark way. I thought that's just the way life was, because that is, when you see things that way, that's the way things are. There was a time when I was 38 years old, my fourth time in prison, and I asked for help. And it was the last thing in the world that you do in prison is ask for help. And I did, and it was the greatest thing I ever did. I got medication that helped me. Then I went to school for drafting. It's practical stuff like that that has changed my life, that has given me hope. For me, learning a skill, learning a trade specifically, was eye-opening and exciting and made me start to develop confidence, hope, just good positive things started happening. The more I replaced my negative thoughts with positive direction, there were less negative thoughts. I had this power to take something that already exists and make it better. The same thing that I did with bread I already was doing it as a drafter. That was 2001 when I started drafting, and I got out of prison in late 2004, basically 2005. Went to work, making bread with my family, but there was nobody there, kicking things up and making something happen, right? It was just, let's make this product for Trader Joe's. I got out with this drafting mindset, with this design mindset. But for us, the opportunity was in bread. And it wasn't to make what other people were making, because those guys were already experts at that. I have to make a good product, and then I have to make it great. And through a couple months of experimenting, all the time, I would work a regular job, and then I would spend many more hours testing and doing research. I'd do 3 batches one time, 5 batches another time, each one with a variable. I'd have my control and my variables. Each time I learned something. I learned a long time ago that one of the greatest things you can do is fail, fail well. And my failing always led to a better product. To make a Ferrari, you don't cut a bunch of corners, and so that's what we did. It was making the Ferrari of bread. And there was definitely concern. My brother, people, naturally were thinking, I don't know if people will pay this.
So in less than a year's time, he's taken it from concept to recipe to store shelves.
Even though it was a recession, people maybe gave up other things, but they didn't give up their bread.
He is not a killer. The bread is killer good, but his was a drug problem, right?
No murder on the rap sheet. The bread killer. The man, he's a sweetheart.
My brother wanted to call my bread Dave's Bread. I had a bread called Killer Bread, so it became Dave's Killer Bread. Who the hell's Dave?
I was a 4-time loser before I realized I was in the wrong game.
I wrote my story on the back of the bag. Took me a couple months to write it and fine-tune it. That version's way better than what they got now. But anyway, that's my opinion.
He's the famous ex-con behind Dave's Killer Bread, but today Dave Dahl was behind thick glass in court after a violent run-in with police.
2013 was a pretty crazy year. Started out great. We had just sold half the business. I had become a millionaire, but I was also drinking and feeling really almost like a rock star, because I'm out every day. I'm speaking and getting standing ovations. I'm drinking the same time. I would have a drink before I go up and speak. Then I'd have a bunch more afterwards. I really thought of myself as a very important person. You know, now all of a sudden I'm the black sheep of the company again, right? I had been banned from the bakery for a while. One day I woke up and I said, well, I'm going in there. What are you talking about? It's my company. There's this cardboard cutout, life-size cutout of Dave, me. I looked at him and I go, I can't be here, and he can. I punched the cardboard cutout. And that was the beginning of the day for me. My wife now, she was my girlfriend then, she's driving me to Seattle. I'm so wound up and I'm just talking crazy. I know I'm crazy. We finally stopped and got a bottle of tequila, even though I hadn't been drinking. I was like, well, why not? I drank a little bit of tequila, not a lot. We turned around and went back to Portland, and some friends, we went to some friends' house, and they were so freaked out about me that they called mental health in Washington County. The mental health never showed up. The cops showed up. I decided I wanted to leave that place, and the cops were waiting for me out, in the streets. I ended up smashing into 3 cop cars.
That's Dahl sitting on the ground after it was all over. He and 3 deputies went to the hospital with minor injuries.
After all that happened, the cops beat the cream out of me. I end up in jail. A newspaper article comes out in the Willamette Week saying it was called Breaking Bread, and it was the first media I'd ever seen about myself that I couldn't handle. I had let down, millions of people? At least hundreds of thousands of people. How can this be? How am I gonna get out of this? How am I gonna fix this? Couldn't see how I could do it. So I was depressed, really profoundly depressed for I don't know how long. Over the next year, I had gotten very far away from the company. I was still there, but as things get to be a certain size, it changes a lot of dynamics, and it seemed like my time was kind of over. Flowers Foods ended up buying Dave's Killer Bread for $275 million, and it seemed like a great success, and it was, but it was bittersweet, if not mostly bitter for me. It was a terrible thing to not be able to say, well, this is my company. Dave's Killer Bread really isn't my company anymore. I started focusing on something else. I needed to forget about Dave and Dave's Killer Bread. So eventually I discovered African tribal art, which is totally makes no fucking sense. People ask me why African tribal art? What's that got to do with you? And I say nothing. That's what I like about it. If you're going to do and give back and give your heart to a charity, it's got to follow something that you really feel strongly about. A lot of times a meaningful education for a lot of people, such as myself, is practical, hands-on trades, and so that's what I got excited about, is people learning a trade that would change their lives. And so that was my kind of giving back. How can I help other people do what I've done? And then there's another investment I made, a larger investment, Nucleos. It's a company that stated mission is to make it easier for people in prison to get educated. Family for me really began with my kids. Then I got a wife. She helped me with Dave's Killer Bread. She's a real family person, and she has helped me become more of a family person. One of the things I feel really good about when it comes to family is the fact that I can provide for them now. So for me, it's more about how can I be a good grandpa, a good dad. Still something I'm learning.